A good evening to you, our esteemed viewers. Thank you so much for choosing Family TV among the very many stations. Yeah, we are really grateful. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for loving Family TV, and thank you for accepting Family TV to teach you. This is Health Pot. Remember, this program is brought to you by Makerere University School of Public Health together with Family TV. And we specifically look at the aspect of maternal health and early childhood development. It is very important to pay attention to our child's growth because this is where we lose it at. That is why you shouldn't miss any single session of this program. It is always on every single Friday at exactly 7 p.m. like the time is right now. Edrine Osteen Mukalazi is my name. And today we are with Frederick. Frederick is a research associate at Makerere University School of Public Health, and his research is in what we call injury epidemiology, and he's specifically looking at drowning. Yes, drowning, according to the World Health Organization report in April 2021, is the third cause of unintentional injury deaths. You remember days back, in the week of the Day of the African Child, we looked at unintentional injuries, how they are caused, and they told us it is the sixth cause of child death. But under the unintentional injuries, drowning is the third cause of death. That is why it is so important to pay attention to drowning, and that is why we have Frederick today. And join me as we welcome him for today's show. We are so delighted to have you today in Health Pot.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, kindly greet our esteemed viewers.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're keeping safe at home and observing all the COVID SOPs. Keep safe.
Amen. We want to look at drowning, but how can you define drowning?
So, drowning has quite complicated definition, but we have a working definition that is currently accepted by the World Health Organization, and it defines it as the process of experiencing respiratory impairment as a result of immersion in a liquid. So it means it can be any liquid, could be water, anything that is liquid in any container.
Because days back we used to think drowning is simply falling into a lake or a river, an ocean.
Not only in a river or ocean or lake, even in water in any basin at home, drowning can occur, any liquid.
And now that we are looking at we would call them vulnerable, the children. They're vulnerable, they need much attention. So I think they're more subjected to drowning than maybe the old people, not so?
Yes, the World Health Organization report puts the children 1 to 4 years as among the most at risk populations to drowning. And unfortunately, these drownings occur most of the time in a home setting. So, and this means that it's largely preventable if it is in a home setting. And we've also seen from our studies that we've conducted at the university, children below 10 years constitute nearly 20% of the burden of drowning in the country. This was a countrywide survey where we looked at the burden and the circumstances under which these drownings occur, and children are largely affected.
What effects does drowning has to a child?
So drowning, from the definition of drowning, it can result to death. It can also result to survival with disability or survival without any disability. The worst, of course, is if it results in death. You lose that child and therefore you've lost the future. We all know that the future stands or is held in the hands of children. But if this child survives with a form of disability, it's going to affect his or her quality of life. He may not perform well as they should have in school. You are going to spend a lot of money in treating the disability. We are lucky if the child survives without any form of disability.
What are some of the disabilities that a child can survive with?
Sometimes there might be problems with breathing, especially if the first aid when this child drowned was not given correctly. Some of these things might be irreversible, so the child will have problems with breathing throughout the life. Sometimes they might be linked to other conditions that this child might have been suffering from, so it compounds everything and makes it a bit difficult to manage this child life adequately.
As we are introducing this topic, you told us that according to the World Health Organization, it is said that children from 1 to 4 years are the most vulnerable. But what makes them more vulnerable than any other age bracket?
So children are curious. They want to see and explore everything that is around them. Where there is water, they want to go and play around it. They want to swim in it. They want to
Especially if they can see their shadow in the water.
Yes, if they can see the shadow, they are curious. They want to see who is inside there, and sometimes they end up falling in that. From our study in Uganda, which is more context specific, we found that many of these children are drowning because of things that are preventable. The child has been sent to fetch water from the river. Others have drowned because they have been left unattended to. Others drown when they are bathing in a basin, or there's no adult bathing them in a basin. In the tanks that are at home, not covered, that have water. The pits that may also have water. So these children want to explore anything and everything and end up falling in this water.
So you talked of 1 to 4 years being the most vulnerable, being the vulnerable age bracket. But what is the most vulnerable among that?
So it depends on a number of factors. If the drowning is to occur in a home environment, we see that those below 1 year old may be more at risk of drowning in basins when they are being bathed. Or, for example, a mother may be bathing this baby and leaves the baby in the basin, goes in to pick a towel and may find this child is already gone.
There is also another tendency that mothers do. Because they say that babies like water so much, so they get a basin, they pour their water, and leave the baby in the water to play with the water. Isn't that a risk?
That is a high risk, and it's true babies like water so much, but they need to be supervised. An adult needs to be there at all times for as long as this baby is near any water, whether in a basin or in any collection of water. Yes.
Okay. And then what about these other categories? Because I think 2 or 3 years back, one of our former MPs lost his twins in the swimming pool around home. And what can you say about that?
So that's another age category. Of course, even the 1 year old can be at risk of drowning in such places as swimming pools. But even those who are already 5 years and above are equally at risk, not only those 4 years and below. So in swimming pools, if there is no attendant, if there's no adult taking care of these children, they'll drown. They will fall in the water, and unlike an adult who may be able to hold his or her breath for maybe a few minutes, this child may not be able to do that, and drowning can kill in as low as 20 seconds. This child will be gone.
We are looking at drowning as a very dangerous incident. How can we prevent it? Because now this is lockdown, children are at home, all children are at home, and some parents are still working, so some children are left at home alone. So how can the parent out there prevent this?
Yeah, so as I alluded earlier, one of the most safest ways of preventing drowning, especially in these children, is supervision, parental supervision or caretaker supervision. Do not leave your child alone, unattended to. For those who are lucky and have swimming pools in their homes. It is also advisable to always have an adult, but the World Health Organization has interventions that it recommends for prevention of drowning, and this cuts across. So things like installing barriers around any water source that can restrict, barriers that can restrict access to this water is good, so that there is no free access to these water sources. We can also make sure that all water containers in the home are either emptied or covered tightly, so that these children cannot open and enter. Ensuring that all pits within our home environment are covered or filled up, so that no water stagnates there. And one of the other things that is recommended by the WHO, the World Health Organization, is teaching children how to swim. Let's teach our children to know the water. Let's make them know the water. It's a worthwhile investment. If you learn how to swim at a younger age, you're more likely to grow up when you know how to swim, and probably that skill will save you even when you're an adult. So learning to swim at an early age is a very effective.
Like which age is recommended?
So it depends on how quick the child is to catch up. So sometimes 4 years, the child can be trained how to swim, 5 years and above. In some countries, even as low as 3 years, children are already being taught how to swim, especially survival swimming, things that are the kind of skill that can make this child survive on water for a short time, so that rescue can be got. Yeah.
Now, are those the only measures that are recommended?
So those are the ones that are more applicable to children, but there are others that are recommended by the WHO to cover all age groups, including adults. But these are specific to the children. And of course, what I didn't mention is that if you must go to water, into the water with your child, who is maybe 5 years and below, make sure they have a life jacket that is actually effective. That the term we use is seaworthy, a jacket that can be able to save life even if this child drops in water.
How can you detect that this life jacket is worthy or this one is not?
There are tests that need to be conducted, and there are parameters that we use to inspect to determine whether the jacket is worthy or not. So a normal parent may not know that this jacket is worthy or not, but this is largely based on the responsibility of the government to ensure that the jackets that are in the market and available for parents are worthy and have been tested.
But I also want you to advise a mother out there, because we are in a country where some of our parents have their water source as flowing streams, wells, and all that, and all those other sources. It is a few families around, these families around urban centers that have piped water. Some of the communities in the rural areas don't have piped water, so they have streams, they have wells, and that. And then the parents don't go for water themselves. They send children. How can you advise them to prevent drowning?
So, if it were possible, we don't send our children to these high-risk water sources. By high risk, I'm referring to sources like rivers, lakes, where it is easy for this child to fall in and drown. But if it were also possible, simple interventions, okay, simple but might be expensive, providing boreholes, providing taps would save these children from drowning. But the most effective, if a well or a river is the only source of water, then supervision by an adult is important, and not allowing these children to get too close to the water.
Now, some children will run and go in disguise of going for water. They follow maybe their elders. They go in disguise of getting water, and then they end up swimming. Because I had a report last year, some fall children from one family drowned in a certain stream somewhere in Kyotera district last year. But because the young ones followed the elders as they were going for water, and then instead of collecting water, it turned into swimming, and as they were swimming, they drowned. So I think we need now to advise the parents on this curiosity.
Yes, parents need to be aware that children are at risk of drowning and they should supervise their children. One of the ways of showing your child love is being closer to them and watching whatever they are doing. Sending your child or leaving your child unattended to, going to the river alone can be equated to neglect, and you can actually be prosecuted by law. So parents need to always accompany their children and supervise whatever their children are doing.
Let us go for a short commercial break, and then we come back. We are going to continue with the role of the parent in preventing drowning. We are coming back shortly.
As you think about the Lord just taking over your case and you're no longer in the midst of it, and he says, fear not.
Demons from the mountains, scream and leave.
In the name of
Demons
the Lord.
from the graves, scream and leave. In the name of Jesus.
Welcome back from the commercial break. This is Health Pot, and this program is brought to you by Makerere University School of Public Health, together with Family TV. We are basically looking at maternal health and early childhood development. And you who has just joined in, we are looking at drowning. Before we went for a commercial break, we had started on to the role of a parent and a caretaker on the prevention of drowning. What else can a parent or a caretaker do to prevent drowning in children?
So we need to have our parents, the parents of these children, to change their mind, and so there's a need for a cultural shift for parents to start making their children learn how to swim. If they can pay for swimming lessons, I know it might be difficult for some communities, but
Because some parents also don't know how to swim.
yes, if you cannot swim, then you have some resources, you can pay for swimming lessons for your child. Like I said, it's a worthwhile investment. The child will learn how to swim, and it will be a skill that they will live with for life. And they might actually be the ones to save you who doesn't know how to swim. There are stories that have been given to us where children have ended up saving their parents because they learned how to swim. So I think that's one way they can participate in prevention of drowning. The other is making sure that you have a safe home, and by safe home we are referring to no place that has water collected or pooling or ponding of water. If you have a tank, make sure the tank is covered tight or is empty, because these children can easily climb and fall into that tank. And of course, obeying what the law says in the country. For example, there are laws that require you to make sure that your home is fit for children. So you need to be an obedient parent. Yeah.
We have parents, we have families that reside around streams of water, For example, when you take, okay, very many places in Kampala, Machindie, where those places, they have flowing streams. How can you advise parents? Because we've also had issues of children drowning in such streams and taken by water when it's raining.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was referring to, obeying the laws. At least as far as I'm aware, there are laws in the country that do not allow homes in swamps or in wetlands. But if it is near a drainage channel, again, it comes back still to supervision. Many children have drowned as they attempt to cross floods or storm water, and they end up being swept away. So we need to make sure the children are watched.
Some others are left to play in the rain, and the parents think it is joy, but they can't limit how far this child will go running in the rain.
Yes, so it needs much more of the responsibility on the side of the parent, not to just allow your child to go into any water.
And then there is also this other thing. Today, when parents want to take their children to kindergartens, of course, when we see adverts of schools advertising, especially kindergartens, we see kindergartens advising swimming pools. But when you go to these schools, they're not really swimming pools. It's just a pond. They pour there some little water so that the children can play in that water. They're not being trained how to swim. And then each time these children see this water, they think it is a swimming pool that they have at school, and they end up playing in the same water, not knowing how deep this water is. How can you advise on that?
So first of all, in schools that have swimming pools, the hope is that the swimming pools always have an attendant who will save these children in case of anything. But again, when this child knows that there's a swimming pool at school and tries to copy the same thing, thinking that it is also at home, that becomes a risk, and still comes back to what we had said, that ensure there is no collection of water, unnecessary water in the home environment where these children can play. We've also seen children who, there are these flotation devices that children use for learning how to swim. Sometimes these are left on the water or on the swimming pool without anyone attending to it, or when the swimming pool is not in use. So this child will be curious and wants to go and pick that, because to them it looks like a toy and they want to play with it, and they will want to enter that water alone. So we recommend to pick the toy and play. So we advise that when the pool is not in use, make sure all those are removed from the water, from the pool, to avoid tempting or attracting these children to go and pick that.
Now, what about the government? What should the government do? Because the parents will do what they are supposed to do, but I think there is a lot more that the government needs to do when it comes to preventing drowning. What are some of the things that we expect the government to do?
Yeah, so first of all, government needs to have a strategy. And it is unfortunate that right now, as we speak, the government does not have any strategy for preventing drowning. And it's, of course, it's sad, but we are in the process of drafting one for government and hope it will be taken up. One of the things government needs to do is, first of all, acknowledge and appreciate that the burden of drowning is high in the country. Just for your information, Uganda is among the worst hit countries by the burden of drowning. And in fact, in Africa, when you look at lakeside communities, it's the country that has the highest drowning rate, actually, in the whole world. So government needs to recognize that the burden of drowning is there, and drowning kills silently and very fast. So for such a thing that is neglected, we need a strategy. We need a strategy that can guide all programs, because there is no single sector that can prevent drowning. There is no sector that we can say prevention of drowning is in your hands. We know Minister of Health is responsible for health. We know Minister of Transport is responsible for transport. there is no ministry that is responsible for prevention of drowning. This means that all government ministries, tourism, health, agriculture, fisheries, transport, and so on, and other civil society organizations need to come together, but with the guidance of a government strategy. Everyone needs to know what they need to do and what they can do and how they can do it. So one way of government could play a role is ensuring that swimming is introduced in school curricula, so that every child who enrolls in school leaves school when they have a swimming skill, at least a survival swimming skill. That's one way government can play. The other, of course, that everyone always talks about is funding. We need evidence to fund research, to generate this evidence. So government needs to increase funding, or I can't say increase, but maybe allocate funding to support research on drowning and its prevention, so that they have a basis of making the decisions in that.
We are so grateful for this time you've given in to come and educate our viewers out there. I believe parents have been helped. Let everyone do what they're supposed to do. Let us pin the government to do what we expect it to do, but you as a parent, you should also do what you're expected to do. Thank you so much, you who has been watching, you who started with us up to this point. You're still with us. We are also grateful that you've accepted to learn through this program. Yes, this is Health Pod. Remember, this program is brought to you by Makerere University School of Public Health, together with Family TV, basically looking at maternal health and early childhood development. Edrine Osteen Mukalazi is my name. Jonah Jal, the producer. Brenda Tijakira, the associate producer. I've also worked with Tony Santo on social media and Bantam in transmission. Have a good night. God bless you until we meet again next time.